everyone. Welcome to my session for AAC in the cloud. Hopefully we're live. We've got everything going. It's the end of the day. Obviously, if you've been doing AAC in the cloud already, and I'm here today to talk to you about taking AAC to the next level. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides and we can get started. So I am in Australia, so I'm in the future. And hopefully you can see my slides, but we are definitely going to keep climbing and take AAC to the next level today. That's my idea for our sessions. So yes, the session was a little bit slower. Hopefully we've got the live feed happening now and you can all see me. I've got track 1 open on the Slack channel if you want to send me any messages. So let's get started. So if you haven't met me, my name's Amanda and I'm a speech pathologist. I like the bit that says I'm a speech language pathologist because language is what it's all about for me and what we're going to be talking about today. And of course, I've always been an AAC enthusiast. I share my time around a lot here. So I still work with families and directly with AAC users. I also help support in schools, and you may also see me around the Traps at a Sister where I work part-time across all those different things. So today, I want to just assume that we're going to get out of the way, that we're not going to be talking about what's the right AAC tool, as long as we're talking about a robust, comprehensive AAC tool. We know that AAC has to be available. We know that we want to be modeling and teaching language, and that we know about the basics of what communication partners need. So I'm going to assume that you guys know all of that, and we're just going to that next level for planning things today. We're going to be talking about how we can teach language, and that's to me this next step that I think we need to be taking. And of course, because we only have this hour or 45, 50 minutes together, we can't kind of touch all of the literacy stuff as well. So it's there in mentioning. But I think for any of us, whether you're a parent, a professional, an educator, anybody that's working to support an AAC user, then basically we're all going to be, our core business should be about teaching language and literacy, and AAC is with AAC. Okay, so some people have said it's a little bit blurry, so hopefully somebody has got some solutions to that. Sorry, I've got the Slack channel open there. I can see your messages. I don't know how to fix that one. I am in Australia. I'm very, very far, far, far away, but I'm hoping that everything, yes. Okay, so it's all good. So yeah, of course, in the expanse of today, we don't have time to talk also about literacy. I'm going to be mainly focusing on language. Now, whatever model of language you take, like I went the old school, went back to 1978, the old Bloom and Leahy model, where we just want to talk about all of the different components of language. We tend to get really focused with AAC. I don't know if it's a historical thing or it's a way it's always just been done, that we only focus on one component of the language, when really we want to think about all the components of language. So the content, what we say, the vocabulary, what words mean, the form, how we say it, our sentence structures, our grammar and use, why we say the things that we say, what communication functions and reasons, our conversational skills and social skills. So I think we have all those components, and whether you use words like syntax or semantics or whatever, the idea for me here is just to spark that idea that you're thinking about language in all its form and the full extent of language. And this is really important for us, of course, to always be thinking the language and that link to language, spoken language or oral language with written language, and why AAC and teaching language on AAC is so woven into literacy. And that's just, it's not like a continuum that goes one directional, all of those things are very linked. This to me is one of the best quotes I've ever read, and it makes me realize how hard, how much we have to do to build language skills with AAC, because the reality is you can get by without speech, but you can't get by without language. Like, I need to have the internal language to know words and know how to join words together to be able to communicate real messages in real situations. I need to have the language skills to be able to do that. And so for me, like, this quote just goes ping in my mind when we're thinking about our AAC users who may have some speech, not a lot of speech, but this just makes so much sense to me. And it just drives me to think every time I'm working with someone who uses AAC, how I can help build their language skills. So the other, obviously there's a little bit of a lag or a delay. I'm just reading the Slack channel. Some of the slides aren't going. So maybe we've frozen just a little bit. I'll go back a few times. So there's a quote here by Dr. Russell Johnson, who said, you can't get by without speech. You can get by without speech, but you can't get by without language. So hopefully things catch up for you. I'm going to advance again now to the next part. There is a link to my slides where some of this text will be found. That's not helpful in a live presentation. Okay, so I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for a second, because that's not very helpful if you're still right back at the beginning. Okay, so here I am, Amanda. Okay, that wasn't very useful. My slides are, yeah. Sorry to hear that. Technical difficulties. We didn't do our technology chant to practice and pray that everything was going to go okay today. But anyway,
you're on the new slide now. You're not on the same one you were stuck on before. Oh,
okay.
And you just moved. Let's see if the YouTube
Assumed AAC knowledge. Oh, I am live, so people can hear me talking live. Problem solving the technology. Stick with us. We'll get to the content. Okay, great. So today we are talking about teaching language, however that language looks. As I said here, whatever model of language you look, we just want to make sure that you're using and thinking about all the different components of language. We tend to get stuck sometimes in AAC. And then this was the quote. So yes, hopefully we'll just keep moving, or we'll fast run out of time, won't we? I think the important thing about language is when we teach kids or someone who uses AAC language, full language, it gives them the power of flexibility. And the thing that we always say, especially with literacy, that I can say anything to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I think that that's a really important part of things. Okay. So we'll just keep moving on. So when I think about building language, the goals is that I can communicate real messages in real situations. I can make connections. When I have full language, I can have choice, control, and autonomy. I can engage with the world around me in meaningful ways, and I can participate purposefully in a way that's socially valued. And I think that those are important reasons why we do it. But even more than that, we want our AAC user, we want to get to know an AAC user and let them show their real personality to us. And that's all about that connection and what language gives when I can communicate my ideas and my opinions and my likes and all of those sorts of things. So anytime I'm kind of planning out something on AAC, an activity, doesn't matter for what, I'm always thinking about what language do we need to participate in that activity. I might think about the communication functions. We'll have some examples of that. I'm also looking for multimodal opportunities, and also I'm always looking for ways to weave in the literacy. So again, if we just look at the language, you don't need to go into it any more further than that. The interesting thing about AAC is that we've had such a huge shift in AAC where we now know more about how important core words are. And so now we're having a lot more systems that have core words, which are those building blocks of language. But we're, of course, realizing that we don't have one without just core words, because we also still need our fringe words. It's the fringe words that help us add really specificness to our messages. So we need that combination of both, plus also my personal words and access to the alphabet, of course. So we now are starting to realize we of course we always want to know about doing more with core, but we know that to really build language we need core words, fringe words, our personal vocabulary, and the alphabet. And that thankfully, we have very good AAC tools that allow us to do that. I think our mindset should be different and evolving now. Let's think about how language develops. And we don't need to do things in an old school way. Let's think about how language develops. I'm not answering this question today. I just want to get into some practical ideas, but I think that that's an important thing, that we stop doing things in an old way that might restrict language development or not give opportunities for more words and more sentences to come. And because, of course, when we know better, we do better. Another really important thing to think about in all of this is communication functions, and that's all the reasons that we communicate. Of course, we have getting and giving information, we have social interaction, we have AAC repair and expressing needs and wants, and all of these things are all the different reasons that we communicate, and I think it's a really good way, a thing to think about. What's really interesting about this is that we often talk about giving kids something to motivate them to communicate. We actually have to find reasons that motivate them for a while as well. So, for example, I had a young man I was talking to, and he would often just randomly list foods, and chicken nuggets would come up, but look, he was more diverse than just chicken nuggets. He'd often, state curries or any, salmon. He had very great taste in food. Unfortunately, the team around him assumed that his reason for saying all those foods is that he was requesting them. I want chicken nuggets. That was kind of what they thought. And so they really wanted to restrict his food page, because he seemed to spend most of his day just labeling and matching foods and, just all listing foods. And they just assumed that it was that he wanted to request. But actually, when we analysed and thought about it, he just actually didn't have any other language in which to talk about food, that he could say that he liked food, or that he wanted to plan to make some food. And so we had to teach him some language so that he had different language to be able to communicate for different things. Because it turns out he's actually quite a foodie. He loves food. He loves talking about food and looking at recipes and searching YouTube for new ways to cook something. And that became something that we didn't know before, because people just always assumed that he was just always asking for chicken nuggets all day, right? So we've got to find those reasons that excite and motivate an AAC user. I use communication functions quite often to set goals, to think about ways I'm going to expand language. Okay, so far they can tell us that they like chicken nuggets. Let's talk about how we might make a plan for our next meal of chicken nuggets, how we're going to do it. I want to use them as I'm planning and thinking about activities. Another really important thing is that we always allow multimodal communication opportunities in every activity, because there are so many different ways that we communicate, and we should celebrate them all. We have our communication, our AAC device, but we've also got photos and sign language, maybe pictures in a book, and all of these ways are valid methods of communication that we should use and respect. So we accept and respect all the different ways that we communicate, and I would take that one step further to say that we don't only accept and respect them, but we want to build in other modes that can be used. So if that means teaching your kids how to use emojis, here's a young man, we put emojis onto a board on his AAC just for fun. He now uses emojis in messages all the time. If that's what it takes, then that's great. I would encourage you, we talk about the noun town, don't go to noun town on AAC. Look around you. There's usually going to be photos or pictures and gestures and real objects around. We don't always need to find the noun on our AAC. So I would encourage you to use photos and pictures. And of course, for literacy, we're going to be talking about weaving in literacy instruction every time. Of course, don't have time to talk about that for today. Please put any questions in the Slack as we go along today. But let's get into some practical ideas. That means we've got half an hour left to go through some of my examples, fun stuff like stacking toilet rolls maybe. But let's look at some activities. I want you what I always think about is communicating for real reasons. I'm looking for ways to make it meaningful, purposeful, and engaging. I want kids to be excited about language and the doors language can open for them, to talk about things that they like and are interested in. And I think that when we create real reasons to communicate, that's really important, and that they're engaged in, it has a real purpose. So that's what we're going to try and have a look at some examples for. As I do like to say, we want to make it fun, because if it's unfun, it shouldn't be done. We don't want AAC to be hard work or to boss them around. We want to find how we can use AAC to tell jokes and talk about good stuff. It has to be fun. We don't want to make it feel like work. So let's talk about storytelling. So what ways can we build language so an AAC user can tell stories? I don't know about you, but storytelling is so fundamental to so much of what we do. Day to day, you're telling stories about things that have happened to you in the past. And it's just such an important thing. When we tell stories, we connect with others. We build friendships because we find out the things that are in common together, and it shows personality. Of course, storytelling, because of books and writing, it really is an easy way to build in literacy and writing experiences as well. So I love setting storytelling as a goal in AAC, because I think that there's lots of benefits to it. And so let's think, when I am telling stories, what is the language? The interesting thing about storytelling is we're often sharing memories. We're often talking or thinking about things that have perhaps happened in the past. We certainly might be talking about things that are no longer present or in front of us, and that requires a different level of language and thinking. You want to make sure that on your AAC, you've got your vocabulary updated, that you have the people and the places, the activities that you most want to talk about. Maybe the language you need is to practice longer sentences or the past tense verb. So I don't just say I go somewhere, I went something. These are opportunities for teaching those language in real situations. Maybe you're teaching the student about or the AAC user about starting the story with the beginning and giving some details in the middle and telling the end. Maybe they give their opinion, they describe, they add details, they tell a joke about it. So there's lots of language in storytelling, and it might just be the beginning level of language is that you tell a story about something that just happened yesterday. So it's the most recent in your mind. Probably the number one strategy I would talk, of course, about with storytelling is set the context. You want to use photos, pictures, and real objects. I mean, there's not many situations that you would go into today where you wouldn't be somewhere where somebody has their phone out showing a photo to a friend to tell a story. Let me show you the photo of it. So I think that we should be teaching our AAC users to use photos, to show photos. It sets the context is often what I talk about. And if we talk about one of the most important things is about connection and shared understanding, so we're on the same page with things, then setting the context. I show you the photo from my holiday. All of a sudden, exactly, it sets the context so you know what it is I'm trying to tell you about. It gives us a shared understanding, a shared starting point. It's just really very useful. So, of course, number one strategy, teach using photos. So maybe you might pick and work together, pick and print photos, make a photo board. This photo board is one of my daughters, but it's a strategy I use with families quite a lot. Like, take those photos off your phone and put them on walls, because lots of great conversations happen in front of a photo board just like this. Talk about the photos, write about the photos, teach kids how to take photos and use that camera roll to start conversations. It's just really a valuable way. So you want to be using photos in storytelling, and lots of other reasons as well. Another thing you can do is, if it's a story that was really meaningful and interesting, you want to save those stories into the AAC, or in some sort of way, maybe it's in an electronic book, some sort of way so that they can tell that story later. It's a really important part of the interesting thing about storytelling is that, I want to be able to talk about that memory and that story again. I don't want to just tell it once and then it's gone. I still have a young man, and he, every single time he sees a spider or a bug anywhere, he talks about the time that he got bit on the foot. He got bitten on the foot. It was an ant that bit him, but he was determined that it was a spider that bit him. And that happened 10 years ago. And every time he sees a bug, he still wants to tell you about the time he got bitten on the foot by a spider. And so, and what happened is that he would point to his foot and gesture and try and say, and then mum would have to translate. So instead, we put a button on his AAC that said, "Oh, remember that time when I got bitten on the foot by a spider?" So that he can actually retell that story at another time. So saving stories is really important. And then also we want to have opportunities to be able to share those stories. And now maybe we're not going out as often. So, we used to think about being in face-to-face because we're catching up with family, but maybe it could be a FaceTime call or a Zoom. But it's about really thinking about, okay, I've got this story. How can I share it with others? And it beyond just doing it with my family and my immediate people, but, planning for those opportunities so that I can share my stories, because that creates that real reason. Oh, remember, we want to tell all our friends that story because we're going to, we're going to so-and-so's wedding on the weekend. I bet you we've got some news stories because we haven't seen Auntie Jane in a long time. We've got some news to tell her. So, it's about thinking and preparing and creating those opportunities. Okay. I also another really practical thing that I think that we can do to build language is look at favorite activities, look at preferred activities. And I know sometimes like these things become, they are special interests or they're very strong interests for someone. And, but I'm really very much of a lean into them and use them because, it allows an AAC user to show deeply what they know and love about something. And I can get on that page if it means I have to. And I know that then that I'll automatically already have them invested and engaged in the thing that they want to talk about. So even if I have to, work around or throw the perhaps the idea in my head of what I had to follow their lead, that's fine with me. We're flexible around here. So find the things, with the experiences, the activities, the things that they love, and build language and literacy around those. And it's okay, whatever floats their boat, let's repeat it. We can add variation to it as we go along. This is a really important thing to make sure then that AAC is filled with the personal words that they need about topic. And I think it was someone on AAC in the cloud, and I keep thinking I haven't been able to find who said it first. I'm sure it was an AAC user, but they said that core words is not the vocabulary of their passions. And, like core words are, of course, important for building language, but they're not the words that allows them to talk passionately about the things that they know and love. So it's really important that we do sit down and make sure that if I like superheroes, that I've got all of the words and the language I need to be able to talk about those. And so that customization is really important. And even more than that, looking at even what preferred words and phrases that they use. Have you ever thought how many pre-programmed words and phrases are on AAC devices, and that the people that put those in is not the AAC user or the family themselves? So maybe the kid doesn't want to say, "I like that." They want to say, "That's swish," or "That's buzz." I had to ask my children these phrases because I didn't know what was cool to say anymore. So perhaps you might do an activity where you get some peers and some friends in, and you brainstorm some really great ways of saying different things. And you can see for one of the young girls here, we put them on Post-it notes and we scanned through and waited to say, which one did she like or did she want to put into her AAC? And that was a really fun activity. And in fact, one of the words that always makes me laugh, because one of my daughters was learning Shakespeare and high quality. And so my daughter suggested, "That's so vexatious. I'm very vexed," or something like this. And this young AAC user thought that word was really, really resonated with her when she was grumpy about something. She wanted to be able to tell people that she was vexed. And so that was the word that she ended up choosing to go onto it. So we have in our, not only personal words, preferred words for things that we want to talk about, we might have preferred things, words and phrases of ways to say things that we can't assume. And it's about just asking and playing with language. It should be fun and exciting to think of new ways to say things. Language and learning words is fun, right? Here's some just other quick examples though. So if you've got someone who loves YouTube, then just go with it. Find some funny, some funny YouTube clips to watch. I've done things where we've taken screenshots of the different bits of the video and used that to write and talk about the favorite videos. Again, they come in and they've got their favorite fidget toy with them, where it's a rubbery frog here. Take photos of that, talk and write about it and make it into a book. So, there's no reason why we can't do all of those things. I love Google Images. I don't know what they do, but I love Google Images. There are so many fun images that we can find, funny pictures to write about, and things to talk about, things to write about, making books with their favorite things. I have lots of friends that perhaps this is my young friend Matthew. He loves football. And, it's very hard to keep your AAC up to date with all of the player names and the team changes. And so we stopped trying to keep his AAC up to date with all the players. And we just now use the team website. So, we use the team website. We can point to the players. He can talk about who's injured and who's in and out. And so we just use that to add to the conversation. And then, my job in all of this is to perhaps show him the language, the extra words that he needs to use, that if he points to a player, he has to tell me why is he pointing to that player, that they're injured or that they scored the last try or that they kicked the goal or whatever it is, so that he's got that language to talk about. If they've got particular interest in things, I'm going to 100% always say, find pictures, make books. So if they like Barbie, or they like Halloween, or they like hoons. I've got a young man, he quite likes hoon cars, like race cars, drag racing, or cars getting caught by police for speeding. And so we've got lots of books about these sorts of things, finding interesting pictures about it, or the Hulk. And we're not talking the new. I've got a young man, he likes the old 1970s Hulk, who's got lots of really great facial expressions. It just makes me laugh, to be honest. So we've got a whole book on the old Hulk, not the cool new Marvel one, or signs. A young man who likes to just collect and look at signs. And so whatever it is, we just find pictures and we write about it, a favorite color. So whatever it is, whatever floats their boat, I'm going to 100% find pictures, make books, talk about it, AAC, write about it, think about what language and words we can use to describe the pictures. I love doing things like jokes. If they love telling jokes, find jokes, write the jokes, save them into AAC so that they can be told later. So, again, just leaning into those special interests and finding things. Same thing if they have a favorite television show. So I was in fairly familiar territory when we talked about Frozen. I've got young nieces and daughters, so I could talk Frozen because I'd watched the movies. But when I had a young man that liked Doctor Who, that took me a long time to figure out the vocabulary of Doctor Who. There's lots of really interesting words and concepts in Doctor Who that I just didn't get at all. So it took me a long time to find the words that he needed, so that he could talk about one of his favorite topics of Doctor Who. That was not something. I did some of it, and we brainstormed the words that he would need. We Google imaged, fan pages to try and find the right words. I had to educate myself. I think the other important part is making sure that we always take these preferred activities to the next level. So we're always thinking about the reason. Okay, so I really, really like surfing. So what does that mean for me? And what language do I need to be able to talk about surfing? So I had a young man, he kept talking about surfing. When we found out he'd actually been surfing as a young person, and now as an adult wanted to try and go back and do surfing again. And so when I taught him how to send an email and what language he needed, that he wants to go surfing, when can he go surfing? Let's send an email to Dad. That was something that we were able to make happen. So it became, we weren't just talking about our favorite thing, but we were making a plan for something that could happen in the future. And it helped because then it was something that we were able to take action about. It wasn't just something we were talking about. So when we share our favorite things, it helps us to have choice and control in our life. I'm not just talking about my favorite things because I'm telling the story of something in the past, but I'm also making things happen in my life so I can redo the things that I like. So perhaps it's make your favorite things in books, or learning how to send a message or an email to somebody. So again, adding another purpose to those things. Okay, well, I wonder if you're all still out there. The Slack channel was very quiet. Somebody send me a message so I know you're still all there. Anyway, we're just going to go through a few more ideas, and I've got the time. We've got about 15 minutes set, and I welcome any questions that you can put into the Slack channel now. Okay, so like a smiley face, there's people there, good. Okay, as long as you go away with some ideas and you're thinking about building language, great. Listening is good. If you've already watched a few sessions today, maybe your brains are getting a little full. This AAC in the Cloud has been a wonderful opportunity for us to all do some learning. Still here, good. All right, well, let's talk about another real reason that we need to work on with our AAC users about building language. So we talked about some fun stuff and leaning into preferred activities and telling stories, but I do want to talk about the important topic of advocacy. This is another real reason that we want our AAC users to be able to communicate. So we want to really build language so that AAC users can speak up for themselves. And I think that this is a really important thing that we as an AAC community should all be advocating for. So of course, advocacy for yourself, oh good, yay. We've got other fellow Teach Kids to Advocate for Themselves fans in the crew that in the audience there. It's about speaking up about the things that are important to you, telling people about your thoughts, making sure your needs are met. It's an important thing. And quite often AAC users might not have been given the language to be able to do it. But more importantly, people might not have listened to them when they tried to advocate for themselves. And so I think this is an important thing. So let's look at some practical strategies. Last year, Cole and Donnie presented at AAC in the Cloud. So, go back to AAC in the Cloud for last year, Google, it'll come up. If you type in autonomy, self-determination, dignity of risk and harm reduction, really, really, really a fantastic presentation setting the scene for thinking about why we want to talk about things like advocacy. And really today we're really talking about, it's not just, it's the power to say no, but it's the power to say anything to anyone so that you can have your needs met and to speak up for yourself. Cole and Donnie are presenting again this year for AAC in the Cloud as well. Cole said non-compliance is a form of self-advocacy. So, like if a kid is not being compliant with something, it's probably that they are trying to tell you something. So rather than forcing compliance, like look at the situation and think, what are they trying to tell me? So that's very important as well. And I think that we're talking about all the types of phrases, or like, I've got more to say about that. You need to give me more time. I'm thinking about it. I can understand everything you say. Don't interrupt me. All of these things are all different ways that I might be able to advocate for myself in a situation. Okay, so I think that this is just the beginning. These are just some exemplars of ways that we can advocate. And what's really, really important that I would love to get across here, and Donnie, I borrowed this quote from Donnie to say, no one is too young, too disabled, too uneducated, or too powerless for self-advocacy. And what that reminds me is that no matter the AAC user that I'm working with, doesn't matter where they are in their AAC journey, I'm going to be working with them for self-advocacy. So even an emergent young person, we might talk about the core word of something like stop. I don't have stop in my AAC as an early word so that I can boss the kids around and tell them to stop when they're doing something that I don't want. I want that young person to be able to learn to say stop so they can tell me to stop when they don't like it when I'm doing something, or to tell a sibling to stop when they're being annoying. I want them to learn to use the word stop to advocate for themselves. Perhaps it's about analysing of the stuff that's happening that's too noisy, or someone's too close to them, they're in their personal boundaries. There was a great session I just watched before this one that talked a lot about this as well, consent, and so check that one out too. So much learning we have to do after today. Lucky all of the presentations are obviously saved and on YouTube and on the AAC in the cloud website for us to watch later, which is fabulous. So, it's really important that we teach again, we're not just teaching the word not so that we can boss a kid around. We're teaching it so they can tell us, not that, I don't want to do that one. No, thank you, not that. And it's important that, it isn't just a good thing to keep in mind. Thank you, Brian. It is actually important, and that it's more what probably the harder thing about advocacy, because a lot of our AAC users will be very motivated to advocate for themselves, but it's like training the adults to listen and respect when they tell you to wait, or they tell you to stop, or that they want to do something different. Oh, I've got a plan. You can't tell me to do something different. It's about us as communication partners working to train the adults in the environment to be able to respect and give space and honor when they do advocate for themselves. Okay, so some other parts or some other ideas. Advocacy in the community might be a really important thing. So maybe it's about pre-planning and thinking about when I'm going to meet an unfamiliar person, how am I going to be able to speak up for myself in that situation? So that's a different thing altogether. But quite often when we're in the community around familiar people, I need to be able to have phrases. Yes. Definitely. Alice has just shared in the Slack channel. If you're watching this later, obviously we have the Slack channel where people are putting comments in, but just talking about asking for consent and, talking about those things more. And there was a great session that was just hosted on AAC in the cloud this conference. So check that one out too. One of the things that I work on quite a lot is challenging the behavior of the speaking communication partners. And there's one tomorrow too. Perfect. So, that we don't just accept that the communication partner who speaks has the hog of the turn and, can speak over them. All AAC users need fast ways to be able to say, please wait, give me more time to answer. Hey, I understand. Talk to me, not to the person I'm with. We want them to be able to challenge, because you speak to any person who uses AAC and they will say that their biggest challenge is the behavior of speaking people. It's not. There's there's other things that they would also talk about, but they would say most of the time it's about the behavior of the speaking people who talk over them and interrupt them, those sorts of things. So I think that, from an early age, we need to teach, please wait, wait, I need more time. And my polite version is, please wait while I write my reply. And my more assertive version is, shut up and listen. And whatever works, work with AAC user to find the right language to help them advocate for themselves. So whatever age, we should be talking about how I can speak up for myself. We're gonna just talk another couple of examples. Conversations is another. I think it's a less worked on kind of concept, but there's so much language in conversations and so much fun in conversations, where we talk about our ideas and our plans and our feelings. They're often fast moving, which can be sometimes the challenge for an AAC user. And also it's that same thing like with storytelling. We're not necessarily talking about something that's right in front of us. We're like not at bowling and we're only talking about the 10-pin bowling the entire time. We could be talking about other things and interests and plans for the future. And it's unpredictable in that sense. That's one of the things. So for an AAC user, have they ever seen a conversation model? Do they have the words that they need? Do they know how to initiate or start a conversation? Is there enough time for them even? So conversations is one of those things I think we can work on in a meaningful way. How do we prepare when conversations are really unpredictable? And I'm just going to give you a couple of things that I do with my AAC users to help make sure that they have a say in conversations. So one of the things is give them generic phrases. I gave that example before. What are their preferred ways to, how do I work with an AAC user to plan, write, and then save some generic phrases that can be used in conversations? Oh, tell me more. Haven't finished. I have an idea. That's amazing. Or totes amazeballs. That sounds weird when I say it, not cool at all. But anyway, you get the idea. What are the generic phrases that can help them say something in a conversation? And then we can take it next level. We can do news and stories. So we talked about this before. If I'm telling stories, I want to save it into buttons or on books so that I can start a conversation with some news or a story. But with phrases, I can also do really specific phrases. If I know I'm going into a specific situation, I'm going shopping on the weekend and I want to ask somebody how much something's going to cost, or that I'm spending my birthday money, I can plan in advance what things I think I might need. I mean, we can't predict everything that I want to say, but having some fast phrases already saved in is really a good strategy. And same conversation starters. You know that you're seeing your friend that loves Marvel. So having, I want to ask them about what they think of the new Marvel series on Disney Plus. I want to ask them about that. So plan that in advance. The important thing with any conversational stuff, like anytime we're going to put a pre-programmed phrase or sentence into AAC, we want it to be the AAC user's word. We want them to maintain authorship, even if they need help with the grammar or whatever. So maybe it's co-writing, but the ideas and the words should be fine or should be theirs. Rather than us assuming that we know the right words, sentence and questions to ask for an AAC user when we just clearly don't. So I think it's important that the authorship stays with the AAC. It's their words, their ideas, their phrases. And an AAC tool that comes pre-programmed with a whole lot of phrases and sentences, that just hurts my mind a little bit, because how can we possibly know the phrases and the things that the kids want to say? And it's not one or the other. So we want to co-author, we want the AAC user to save sentences and phrases that we know that they want to be able to say, but we also need a full vocabulary of words so that they can piece together the language at that word by word level, possibly to be able to communicate something that we didn't prepare for. So I think it's not either or in this case, it's kind of both. And that's important as well. Of course, in conversations, we always want to use incidental opportunities. You're doing something with a book with farms or a puzzle, and it reminds you of the farm visit. You pull out the phone to look at the photos of the farm, and then you've got a whole lot of conversation and sentences that you can model to remember that farm visit. And even in conversations and storytelling, how can you use social media? I have a few young people for whom, we've started using Instagram, where they have a photo and they're starting to write. Here's my friend Maddie in Spain with a cow in the rain. And he, wrote, he wanted to, this was just a way for him to have more opportunities to interact with people around him. The other important part about conversations and all of this is about, again, managing the behaviour of the speaking people and talking about how we use pause and wait time so that the AAC users do actually have some time. Okay, well, we are going to wrap up because we are fastly running out of time. I did have a small section on just talking about emotions and feelings, and probably the main upshot of that is stuff that you know. So we'll go through it quickly.
Amanda?
Yes, do I have to finish?
No, I'm telling you, take your time. You're okay. If you want to cover that section, cover that section. You're totally fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if there were questions, we had time at the end.
If we go a little over, it's going to be okay.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Well, we'll step through it. These are things that perhaps people know. This is the last section anyway, so if we take a couple of minutes, I appreciate that. Feelings. Talking about feelings and emotions is a very important communication function, and that obviously behaviors and actions often express a whole lot of emotions, and so we have to become very careful. It's about really working with communication partners to become careful observers so that we can understand this from a language perspective. Some of the things that I do is to help build an understanding of feelings. As I talk about my own feelings, I'm sure every kid rolls their eyes hard at me when I talk about how I'm feeling, because they don't really care, but it's about modeling that language in the moment about how I'm feeling, that I'm tired, and that I'm modeling without expectation that feeling. I also do lots of talking about feelings anytime, where I might pause the video and go, oh, I think the Hulk is just feeling so angry today. Look at his face. If it's in a book or a TV show or in a video, anything we're watching, modeling that. The other part, of course, is in feelings is attributing meaning, acknowledging their feelings and showing those words on the AAC. Oh, I can see you're not really sure about that. I think you're feeling worried. That sort of language, we're not a mind reader, but we can read the situation and perhaps show an AAC on the AAC what language. What's really important to me when I talk about, and this is why I wanted to include this section, is that I really think it's important that we expand the language to be able to problem solve. I see a lot of people getting stuck where kids can identify happy, sad, angry, and they're, matching little face cards or whatever. But I think that really in the moment, AAC users often need more language to be able to solve those big feelings and those big emotions. And so here's just an example. One of my friends in the class, they already use that zones of regulation with green zone, orange zone, red zone. And so we had like some really advanced feelings. So even if you weren't using the zones of regulation and you just have happy, sad, and angry, that's okay too. But we've got some more advanced words here to describe a fuller breadth of emotions. But this second page is something that I think is really important. It's the problem solving. It's trying to go, well, I was really angry because it was too noisy, or I was upset because he was too close, or I was hungry. What can we do? What's going to make you feel better? Oh, I need my stress ball or my fidget, or I need to talk to someone, or I need a hug, or whatever it is. I mean, you can see this picture here. You can have a look at it, but this will only fit this one particular student for whom I made this. And you would need to sit down and figure out what is the language that helps them express in the moment why they were sad and what made them upset and what's going to make them better. And I think that this is that next level of language that we need to take when we're talking about feelings. I do have issues where, you might have fun games. Like I love my ping pong balls with emoji faces that I catapult across the room. It's fun. You might have videos and photos and activities, but the reality that feelings and emotions are best learned in real contexts and in naturally occurring situations. It doesn't mean we don't do those other things where we talk about feelings, but I just thought I would add that in there. Well, I got done quick on that anyway. So that was good. Okay, so let's just wrap up our session today. I think the biggest takeaway that I would like is that people feel like building language, adding more words to things should be a fun thing. It's about exploring interesting things. I'm doing an activity. I don't just need the word old to describe that man, because I want to call him ancient, or I want to use a different or a more interesting way to say things. And learning new words and learning how to combine them should be an interesting thing. And we also want to always engage and have fun as we're doing this. If it becomes hard or work, then because I don't have a real reason to it, I'm not going to engage if it's too much effort. So remember, we come back to that quote that we started with, is that you can get by without speech, but you can't get by without language. And so it's on us to be able to teach how on my AAC I can combine words for language to be able to say anything to anyone, anytime, to be able to advocate for myself, to join conversations, tell stories, all those different reasons that we want to communicate. And I just thought I'd finish with a rhyme that I made up for myself. So we need language in a tree, out to sea with a P, not a B, a P, it's a P. Anyway, that's silly, but that's just me, that I just got that bit of rhyme in there to finish off. So we need language in a tree, out to sea with a P. And I think that the important thing about this language part is that there's the tip of the iceberg that is what people see, but the real work is all below the surface, and it's what we do consistently to build language. And also collectively as an AAC community, if we are all on board and collectively in our teams talking about language and the skills that we need to advocate for ourselves, then we're making bigger change. And it is maybe the stuff that's under the surface that people aren't seeing, but it's going to make the bigger difference in the long run for our AAC users, which is what our core business is. So it's about what we do consistently and collectively to really build language. So, yes, I can do it here, I can do it there, I can do it everywhere. Sorry, I just had to put a rhyme in there for a little bit of fun. So, and for me, it just always comes back and down to this. It's about when I have that language, it gives me that ability to really connect with the people, to really connect with the people around me and build friendships and advocate for myself, choice and control, all of those things that are just so important. But it always comes back to connection. And if I have enough words and enough language, then I can achieve that. So yes, if you have got any questions, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or here's my email address if you've got any other questions after today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we've still got time for questions after all of that. I can talk fast. Everybody knows that if you know me. So thank you so much for all joining in today. And it's always great to talk about something that's a popular topic. So yes, we do. For Assistive, where one of my roles is I do Facebook Live events where I read and use AAC Live. So our friend Kelly in the Slack channel has recommended to check those out. So if you need ideas of how we can use AAC fun videos, then there's always plenty of things around. Yeah. So thank you very much for the feedback. Any questions out there in the Slack channel? Well, we might be ended up finishing up and on time. So I think it might be 7 p.m. in some parts of the States on Tuesday evening. It's Wednesday morning for me. I'm in the future.
Amanda, there's a couple people typing in the Slack channel, so let's just see if they throw up a
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So Kelly said that they have students and parents that follow along the videos, so it's very fun. And then lots of people saying thank you. Well done. There is a link, obviously, the slides. I don't have a lot of the images necessarily, and that makes the file a bit big, but you will get the main content and gist ideas for what we talked about today with some of the tips. So yeah, yes, I can see people typing. Thank you. So some of the people have seen the videos before, so that's good. Oh well, we're going to make it fun and see how easy, not easy. AAC is not easy, by the way, but give it a go. The more we see others use it and ways to do it can really help us out. Oh, thank you. Alice has reshared the link to the slides. It's just a Dropbox link. You can go and find those. So thank you for sharing that, Alice. I appreciate that. All right. Oh.
All right, Amanda, it's up to you. If you want, we can call it good. Yeah. And if anyone asks any other questions in the Slack channel, then feel free to answer them in there.
I can go into the Slack channel afterwards. And thank you. Thanks everybody for coming along today. If you've got any questions, you've got my details. You can reach out to me, and I'll check the Slack channel that I didn't miss anything during the presentation too. So all right. Well, thanks for having me again, AAC and the Cloud team. Awesome as always.
Well, thank you, Amanda. We appreciate everyone attending this session and encourage you to look at the sessions that are available tomorrow.
Perfect.